Looking at the time, it was nearing dusk, and the battlefield had been cleaned up. Han Zhao heard an engine from afar. He raised his eyes and gazed into the distance. There were a few off-road vehicles speeding across the muddy road. Green Valleyville opened its gates, and Balsas was standing beside the gate to welcome these few vehicles with respect. A thought flashed through Han Zhao's mind. The vehicle has an Illumira crest. Zhao Jin, the second leader of Illumira, had sent the emissary Zhao Rui to South Continent to find the Germinal Bounty Zero. More than half a year ago, the Illumira family had realized that the appearance of this Zero was exactly the same as the missing Han Zhao, so Zhao Jin sent people to look for him. Balsas was extremely deferential towards Zhao Rui. He led everyone into the main house. The table was set with drinks and piping hot, fragrant barbecued meat. Other dishes included some vegetables and mashed potato-like crop. In this rogue town, the expenses of the dishes were considerable, and Zhao Rui was very satisfied with Balsa's hospitality. "I will rest for a few days in your territory and continue to find that damn bastard. I'll get someone to prepare the rooms," Balsas replied. "Let me know again of any requests." Zhao Rui's status in the family was higher than his, hence Balsa's posture was awfully low. "Okay." Zhao Rui was pleased with Balsa's attitude. "Is there anything going on recently in this town?" "Yes, those refugees outside. There's something else. Black Phantom is also resting in this town. His reason is unknown. He claims that it was on the way." Zhao Rui's heart skipped a beat. Black Phantom is here, too. Recently, the Darknet's killer list had been updated. Black Phantom's rank had risen to 7th, and he was very active. To know that this legendary killer was nearby, Zhao Rui was somewhat uneasy. "We'd better not provoke him," Balsas replied. Zhao Rui was undecided as he knitted his brows together in a deep frown. He turned and saw Liu Cheng, his expressionless personal bodyguard, who was right behind him. "Don't worry. Even if we face Black Phantom, I can still protect your life." Ever since the off-road vehicles entered the town, Han Zhao had felt a change in Green Valleyville. The town's lookout had kept a close watch on him, as if they were worried about his activities. From this small detail, Han Zhao was fairly confident that the person on the vehicle that had entered the town was an important character. A player who took the role of patrolling in the town suddenly dashed over and shouted in fear, "I found an army. They are approaching, and they have triggered a mission." The players of Greentownville became restless and all went to check out their interface. Han Zhao's brow jumped momentarily. He actually received a mission too. "You have triggered a random mission." Mission summary: Green Valleyville, which is controlled by the Illumira family, is very close to the inhabited land, Black Pine, Liu Cheng's territory. There has been continuous friction between them. Now, Liu Cheng's troops are once again invading Green Valleyville. You can choose to help the Illumira family protect Green Valleyville or help Liu Cheng attack. Please choose your position. Mission requirements: tip off Balsas and protect Green Valleyville. Otherwise, you can choose to join Liu Cheng's troops and attack Green Valleyville. Note: once you have picked a side, you are not allowed to switch. Mission rewards: 1. By protecting Green Valleyville, you will receive 12,000 EXP and 3,000 aquamarine dollars. 2. By helping Liu Cheng complete the attack, you will receive 10,000 EXP. I actually received the novice mission as well. Han Zhao broke into laughter. He did not care about this small reward, but Liu Cheng, who was mentioned in the mission, caught his attention. If he remembered correctly, Liu Cheng was Old Man Lu's son, a South Continent vagrant who was a big warlord. Old Man Lu's 4 blueprints could only be obtained from Liu Cheng. An idea came to Han Zhao's head, and he immediately made a decision. As long as he got to interact with Liu Cheng, he would then be able to know when the secret quest would begin. As for those 4 uncommon blueprints, he had been eyeing them for a long time. This urgent mission resulted in the players taking action. Some of them immediately chose to protect Green Valleyville, which offered a higher reward, and went to tip off the guard. There were still some players surveying the situation first. "Damn it, the bastard of Black Pine came again," Balsas cursed with a pair of gloomy triangular eyes. Zhao Rui arrived beside Balsas and pointed at the dense mess of surrounding players and assured him, "Don't worry, don't we have cannon fodder?" Balsas' eyes lit up. With this bunch of unbeatable eccentric refugees, they were able to counteract Liu Cheng's military advantage. Balsas called the assistant and ordered, "Go tell that bunch of refugees outside that I need them to ward off Liu Cheng's army." Liu Cheng sat in the middle of a war chariot and looked serious. This unit had more than 60 off-road armored vehicles equipped with machine guns and rockets, followed by hundreds of fully equipped elite soldiers. Liu Cheng had been coveting Green Valleyville for a long time. There was a strategic mountain pass between this town and his land, Black Pine. Once he seized the town, there would be no worries in the future. We must capture Green Valleyville this time round. The troops were getting closer to Green Valleyville. Liu Cheng soon noticed the crowd surrounding the town. They wore ragged garments, like a group of refugees, guarding the town. Liu Cheng's face immediately darkened, and there was a trace of anger in his eyes. Bosses, are you thinking of blocking my gunfire with these pathetic fellows? Liu Cheng took out a megaphone, and his voice traveled out. Everyone in the town could hear his voice clearly. My men are able to tear them to shreds easily. Do you want me to paint your territory with fresh blood? Bosses emerged above the wall and smiled coldly. Liu Cheng frowned and looked at the group of shabbily dressed refugees. He calmly offered, I'll give you the opportunity to leave now. There is no need to die here. The refugees were restless for a while, but he realized that they did not waver despite that. Are these people unafraid of death? Liu Cheng was astonished. He realized that there was not the slightest bit of fear on this bunch of refugees' faces. To be apprehensive toward endangering the refugees' lives would only hinder his battle. Liu Cheng's choice appeared awfully stupid in Balsa's eyes. Balsa grinned evilly and was about to order the refugees to counterattack when he suddenly realized that there was movement from the sidelines. Black Phantom. Han Zhao stretched his back and strode unhurriedly to the center of the confrontation. He instantly caught the attention of both sides and the players. If you all want to go to war, do it tomorrow. His voice was as good as a loudspeaker. Everyone was taken aback. Why is he intervening? Balsa immediately swallowed back his almost released order. Liu Cheng froze, sizing Han Zhao up, before exclaiming hoarsely, Black Phantom. Why is this fellow here? The commanders of both sides were afraid of the consequences, so they ordered the troops to lay down their weapons. The tense atmosphere of confrontation dissipated immediately. The players were bewildered. They were not very familiar with Aquamarine's background. From the mission brief, it was known that Balsa and Liu Cheng were warlords of influence. Black Phantom gave out an order on his own, and the two warlords with armed forces immediately feared the consequences. This roused the players' curiosity. With one sentence from Black Phantom, he was able to halt the war. Then the players noticed something else. These NPCs all recognized Black Phantom. Exactly how big was his reputation on the planet? Could it already be to the point where he was able to cut in anywhere he went? Is this Red Hair Shank's legendary ability? Bunhit Dog, who was secretly videoing the scene, was thrilled. This kind of news material was exactly what he wanted. The sky became dark. Han Zhao walked over to Liu Cheng's camp, and the guards hastily raised their guns when they saw him approaching. Relax, I just want to have a short discussion with your leader, Han Zhao assured them. The guards continued to hold on to their guns and did not allow Han Zhao to enter the camp. At this moment, Liu Cheng heard the commotion and walked over. Let him in. The famous Black Phantom actually appeared in this small place. I don't know the reason of your intervention. I don't think Balsa is qualified to hire a killer of your status. So what is your purpose of visiting me? Han Zhao got straight to the point. I'm here to help you. Help me. Liu Cheng became suspicious. We have not met before. Han Zhao casually made up a reason. You are more likable than Balsa's. Liu Cheng felt strange and paused before commenting, Balsa's. He's a despicable fellow. He actually let the refugees act as cannon fodder. I really don't understand. Why did this bunch of refugees disregard their lives? What benefits did Balsa's give them exactly? I gave them an opportunity to live, yet they don't want to leave. They don't have much combat strength. Why don't you just crush them? With your armed forces' strength, it would be a completely one-sided massacre. Han Zhao half smiled. Liu Cheng's face was blank. He declined to comment and changed the topic. You are concerned about the refugees. I can help you resolve that. Liu Cheng raised his eyebrows. You can convince them. Perhaps. Then what do you want from me? Liu Cheng did not believe that a legendary killer, who was a stranger, would help for free. I don't need a reward. Liu Cheng's eyes darkened, and he stared at Han Zhao's eyes. What he saw was a dense fog, and he was unable to penetrate Han Zhao's thoughts. Generally speaking, if one did not want a reward, it meant that the person harbored other intentions and bigger ambitions. He nodded and said slowly, then I'll count on you. Han Zhao petted Frenzied Sword's shoulder while walking out of Liu Cheng's camp, saying, I've things for you to do. You triggered the mission. The mission was to disseminate the information of Black Phantom joining Liu Cheng's camp, using reputation as a form of reward. The greater the number of people who came to know this information, the higher the reward would be, and players were surprisingly counted in as the head count. Frenzied Sword did not doubt him and diligently went to disseminate this piece of information in Green Valleyville. Perhaps the ordinary players would be amazed to encounter this type of real-life interaction mission, But Frenzied Sword had gone through Han Zio's baptism of love, and hence was not shocked at any kind of mission anymore. Next up will be to see how much influence I have, Han Zio said. Frenzied Sword was really efficient, and perhaps because he had a bit of a fame now, the news spread through words of mouth quickly. Very soon, it had spread throughout Green Valleyville. Then there was a huge commotion among the community of players. If we choose Green Valleyville, does it mean we'll become enemies with Black Phantom? How is it possible to beat him? The players were panicking. The image of Han Zio ferociously killing the beasts was still deeply etched in their minds. Becoming enemies with Black Phantom would be equivalent to courting death. Should they attack him or not? If they did not attack him, how could they protect Greentownville? This was a thorny problem. One Hit Dog was very decisive. He was the first to advance to Liu Cheng's camp. The mission was second. His main objective was to capture more of Han Zio's acts. The guards had received Liu Cheng's orders and allowed the refugees to pass. One Hit Dog successfully joined Liu Cheng's camp. You made a wise choice. I feel that you have potential. Do you want to become my temporary assistant? Han Zio asked. One Hit Dog's eyes became as big as saucers. He was stupefied. Did he just trigger the secret quest? There was an uproar among the observing players. He had triggered Black Phantom's secret quest. How did he do it? Was joining Black Phantom all it takes? This mission was actually a chance to trigger a secret quest. Realizing this, the players who were still observing wasted no time in joining Liu Cheng's camp. They were enthusiastic, joining the camp like a refugee tide. The camp was filled with players in an instant. It was overcrowded and jam-packed. The guards were stunned. They were unsure whether to chase people away or not. The players who were done choosing their camps impatiently went to find Han Zio, wanting to trigger the quest. However, they were faced with rejection. Why can't we? Is it only restricted to the first person who joined the camp? That was the most possible guess. The players who were a step slower wanted to bang their heads on the ground. Han Zio brought the overly excited One Hit Dog to one side and casually issued 5 reputation points. He secretly planned on how to make full use of One Hit Dog. Bringing along a player who was a game video maker also meant that he was bringing a reporter along. He could then have a channel to disseminate news to players freely. He could choose to give players some news selectively based on what information he wanted the players to know. After experiencing the baptism of information explosion, controlling the public's opinion was equivalent to holding a weapon. He was able to defame the opponent, guide the public's opinion, and shape his image to his benefit. Balsas arrived hastily at the lookout tower and saw a large number of refugees flooding into Liu Cheng's camp. He was flustered. This bunch of refugees are abandoning my town. How did Liu Cheng subdue them? I'm doomed. Balsas was frantically running around in circles. These refugees were his trump card against Liu Cheng, and now that Liu Cheng had them, his advantage no longer existed. At this moment, his assistant ran over panicky and reported the news of Black Phantom helping Liu Cheng. This news was like a thunderbolt hitting him. Balsas was stood motionless in shock. Every superhuman that died under Black Phantom's gun was a reflection of his own end. Black Phantom was of a legendary rank. Why would he help Liu Cheng suddenly? It must be because of Black Phantom that Liu Cheng was able to subdue the refugees. Why does he have so much influence on the refugees? Balsas had the idea of retreating. The battle hasn't begun, and you're already thinking of running away. Have you forgotten the Illumina family's rules? Zio Rui arrived at the lookout tower, stood beside Balsas, and frowned. But that's the Black Phantom. Also, half of the refugees have betrayed us. Illumina would never withdraw from a war. Get your men ready for battle. Zio Rui's voice was firm and full of righteousness. There's the Black Phantom though. My bodyguard, Liu Cheng, will prevent him from participating in the battle. Balsas clenched his teeth and hesitated for a while before making a firm decision and calling his assistant. Mobilize everyone and kick that Black Pine bastard all the way back to his home. We have some of the refugees with us at least. We still have a chance at this battle. Zio Rui turned his head and said lowly, prepare the vehicle in case the guards fail. We must ensure that we are able to retreat. It was all thanks to you that we managed to solve the issue of the refugees. Han Zio smiled in response. There was no free lunch in the world, and the more Han Zio did not mention a reward, the more Liu Cheng felt uneasy. He paused before saying in exasperation, I really feel that there's nothing on me that such a character like you would be interested in. This sentence was caught by One Hit Dog, who was standing at the side. He sensed the hidden meaning. This kind of character, another clue relating to Black Phantom's identity. One Hit Dog thought of a vague outline for the first episode. A fierce battle began. Gunfire tore the darkness apart. Liu Cheng's troops launched an intense attack on Green Valleyville. The soldiers based on the wall and the vehicle carrying machine guns and howitzers were shooting across each other, and the battlefield was flooded with the sound of engines, machine guns, and screams of agony. Han Zhao observed at one side as the situation did not require him to intervene yet. Liu Cheng had a high chance of winning. Black Phantom, I'll be your opponent. Liu Cheng rushed over with giant strides. I can't even mind my own business now. Han Zhao grudgingly took out and fired a machine gun. 3 bullets hit the space between Liu Cheng's eyebrows, heart, and lower region of his body, but there was no expected blood splattered. The moment when the 3 steel bullets hit Liu Cheng, it seemed that the kinetic energy suddenly disappeared. The bullets bounced off Liu Cheng's skin, and the might was not even as good as a slingshot. Light blue smoke showing the damage dealt could be seen floating above his head. -0. Kinetic energy absorption. The interface showed Liu Cheng had reached LV-44. The level was not as high as Han Zhao's, but Liu Cheng's ability was very tricky. It was the natural defense against a kinetic energy weapon, and this happened to restrain his machinery. Han Zhao was unlucky. Liu Cheng stopped a few meters away from Han Zhao and said coldly, "Black Phantom, this battle is unrelated to you. Mind your own business." A legendary killer was eyeing covetously at edge of the battlefield, so Liu Cheng took the lead to prevent the Black Phantom from participating in the battle. Han Zhao's response was simply 2 bullets going for Liu Cheng's eyes, and they had resulted in 0 damage still. You're Darknet's top killer, and the Blood-Pact Society's trump card. Others may fear you, but not me. I'll give you a word of advice: stay away from this battlefield. The Darknet, Blood-Pact Society. What power is that? The observing bun-hit dog had an idea and hastily stored these 2 important keywords in his heart. He was finally seeing the tip of the iceberg of Black Phantom's mysterious origin. In a quick move, he changed to a HAME bullet and opened fire. The bullets hit the side of Liu Cheng's feet, and poisonous gas began to rise and pervaded the air. Liu Cheng detected the poisonous gas and frowned. He held his breath and charged in large strides. While he was traversing through the battlefield earlier on, he had absorbed a large amount of kinetic energy from the crossfire. The kinetic energy shot out from the bottom of his feet as he dashed toward Han Zhao. With every step he took, his footprints formed big pits. He was like an unstoppable tank as he caught up with Han Zhao. He gathered an enormous amount of kinetic energy and directed it at Han Zhao's chest. Bang! As if having a head-on collision with a mad rhinoceros, his body flew out uncontrollably. The remaining power was unstoppable, and he even knocked down and killed several players who were so unfortunate to be in his way. He stomped his feet and stopped recoiling from the impact. A deep trail could be seen on the ground. High temperature. Liu Cheng quickly raised his head in alert. The glove glided across his cheek and left a burn, exposing his flesh. The burn stung his nerves, and in that moment, Liu Cheng exploded the kinetic energy within his body, causing a tremendous force to push Han Zhao out. Han Zhao panted and removed the mud that was sputtered all over his face. Firearms were useless, and this cost him a chance of surprise kill. In addition, it would only enable the opponent to absorb more kinetic energy. However, he still had other types of weapons such as flames and poisonous gas that both could kill and injure. Fortunately, he is unable to absorb such energy. Otherwise, I really would not know how to subdue him. Liu Cheng covered the burn on his face, glanced fearfully at Han Zhao's gloves, and immediately turned around to run off in another direction. Han Zhao froze, and his expression changed suddenly. He hurriedly gave chase. On a war vehicle, a soldier who was controlling machine guns saw a figure rapidly approaching. He instinctively turned the muzzle around to aim at the figure, and the compressed bullets were hitting the target. However, he was stupefied at the discovery that the target, who should have been shot into a sieve, was unscathed. The warheads dropped onto the ground one by one. "Don't hit him," Han Zhao yelled. It was a pity that the reminder came too late. The surrounding war vehicles fired at Liu Cheng, who absorbed all the kinetic energy. Both of Liu Cheng's eyes were bloodshot, and the amount of kinetic energy was almost overflowing. Liu Cheng's muscles were twitching like those of an agitated mouse. He turned around, and the ground that he had stepped on exploded into a big hole. His whole body flew as if it was an exploded artillery shell. This was the combined kinetic energy of 1,000 bullets. "This speed is too fast for me." Han Zhao's eyes blurred, and he could not avoid it in time. The impact was like hitting a moving train. The scenery in his line of sight fell back quickly, and he resembled a baseball that had been hit for a home run, flying tens of meters. He landed and bounced countless times before falling into a ditch along the sides of the road. His body was covered with mud, and finally he crashed into a war vehicle, overturning it before stopping. He felt really dizzy, and his whole body ached. Magnetically controlled retractable armor's durability dropped by 132 points. He received 241 points of damage. The enemy knew how to bring out the advantage of his ability, which in turn made Han Zhao suffer a small loss. Liu Cheng. I did not hear of his name in my previous life. To think he would be so troublesome to deal with. Oh, he is a crouching tiger, a hidden dragon. I mustn't underestimate him. The area around the two became free of bullets. Soldiers dare not attack Liu Cheng again. But Liu Cheng could always knock himself against the gun muzzle. This battle is greatly disadvantageous for me. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He abandoned Liu Cheng and rushed toward Green Valley Ville. Just like a shadow, he disappeared in a flash. Avoiding the firing by Green Valley Ville's guards, Han Zhao glided up the wall with a few steps, opened fire with both of his guns, and killed the guards wantonly. Bullets penetrated each and every person, and blood was splattered everywhere. Liu Cheng was alarmed and hastily pursued him. Green Valley Ville was the fundamental point of conflict. Han Zhao had understood this point and immediately adopted the tactic of avoiding the enemy's strength and attacking his weakness. Hence, he did not continue to fight Liu Cheng painstakingly. Unless Liu Cheng did not want this town, Han Zhao would only be led by his nose. In the moments between his fight with Liu Cheng, Han Zhao thought of a strategy. After changing the magazine, he shot down a few more guards. There was suddenly a huge gust of wind behind him, and Han Zhao twisted his body to avoid it. Liu Cheng swept past a few inches away. Having missed the opportunity, he punched the wall and smashed a huge piece off it. Broken bricks and stones spilled over the ground. Liu Cheng's body became sluggish, as if he had fully exhausted his kinetic energy. Here's my chance. Han Zhao's hand suddenly pressed on Liu Cheng's face. This time around, the attack was definitely the best. -423. -423. The damage might have seemed worse than the sniper rifle, but the thermo-electrical incisor gloves relied mainly on continuous damages. It was already considered formidable for a sudden explosive force that was able to reach this level. Liu Cheng was not like Han Zhao. His HP was only around 2,000. It easily reduced to 80% in just a short while, and the damage was still flooding the interface. The burning smell was pervasive. Liu Cheng yelled bitterly and got up. He hurriedly exploded his kinetic energy and pushed Han Zhao away. Liu Cheng's face was severely burned and beyond recognition. His face was a mix of burnt flesh and red blood. Liu Cheng's eyesight was damaged, and the light and shadow in his vision was distorted. He could barely identify a direction as he fled, staggering, with his teeth tightly clenched. Han Zhao promptly gave chase, and Liu Cheng's heart sank. He was hoping that Black Phantom would attend to the battle and not chase after him. Fleeing was hopeless. He knew that he would not be able to escape death. He fulfilled his last duty as a bodyguard by holding up Han Zhao. If Liu Cheng died, the Illumira family would surely take good care of his family. The two of them were soon a distance away from the battlefield, and they pursued each other into the woods. Liu Cheng had served the family for 10 over years. He was loyal and devoted. Furthermore, he was the best fighter among the family's ranks. Zhao Rui originally thought that even if Liu Cheng were unable to stall Black Phantom, he would still be able to retreat. However, even though he did not manage to catch Liu Cheng's last words in the earphones when Liu Cheng was escaping, he knew his supporter was dying. Balsas was looking rather nervous. Black Phantom is a monster. I told you earlier not to provoke him. You just refused to listen. Balsas was sweating profusely. Zhao Rui's complexion was ashen. Don't talk rubbish. At least we've escaped. He won't catch up with us, right? Balsas repeatedly looked at the rear-view mirror, his heart pounding. Zhao Rui gulped. Liu Cheng is currently attacking Green Valley Ville, and the guards in the towns will help us stall the enemy. He won't have time to chase and kill us. He had just finished speaking when a ghost-like figure appeared in the rear-view mirror, tailing the vehicle like a shadow. Everyone in the vehicle was so shocked that they screamed. They were so nervous to the point where their bodies went stiff all over. The horror movie-like atmosphere finally triggered the driver to make a mistake. In the state of panic, the vehicle rolled down the slope and fell to the bottom. Zhao Rui's head was spinning as he struggled to climb out of the window. Suddenly, a pair of boots that flickered with blue lights appeared in his vision. He looked up and saw Black Phantom towering over him, looking at him indifferently. Don't kill me. Bang, bang, bang. The gunshots sounded repeatedly. Zhao Rui was so frightened that he shut his eyes and discovered that there was no pain. He opened his eyes and realized that the 4 bodyguards had all been shot and killed. Only Balsas and himself were left. You're a liar. You had already united with Liu Cheng. You absolutely were not just passing by. Whatever Black Phantom had said, that he was not interested in looking for trouble, was all a lie. Han Zhao stroked his gun and chuckled. If I said this was a coincidence, would you believe it? Landing in your hands, I already know I won't be able to live. Kill me. Balsas suddenly grew a backbone and shook off Zhao Rui's hand, which was pulling at his shirt's hem anxiously. I don't know if you're really asking for death or deliberately displaying your strong will, but as you wish. Bang! The bullet penetrated Balsas' temple. He fell, and the pool of blood gradually expanded. Han Zhao's eyebrow shot up. It looked like Balsas was not pretending. He really had given up all hope and wished for a quick death. For this type of warlord who operated outside the city, even if he was usually afraid of death, when he was truly confronted with it, he would accept it calmly. There was someone, on the other hand, who was way weaker. Han Zhao looked over and Zhao Rui was so terrified that he did not dare breathe. His face was pale, and his back was drenched in cold sweat. Han Zhao squatted and used the gun barrel to tap on Zhao Rui's face. You don't wish to die. Zhao Rui frantically shook his head. Give me a reason. I can give you a lot of money. I can refer you to the Illumira family. Do I look like someone who needs that? Han Zhao pointed the muzzle at himself. Zhao Rui swallowed his saliva in alarm as he racked his brains and pondered if there was anything that could move Han Zhao. Han Zhao's eyes were sharp, and he suddenly caught a glimpse of Zhao Rui's full and bulging pocket. He reached out and fished out a stack of bounty slip. It turned out to be a wanted poster for him. Why is this Illumira man carrying with him my bounty slip? Han Zhao raised his eyebrows, played with the paper in his hands, and stared at Zhao Rui silently. Zhao Rui finally saw something that aroused his interest. Zhao Rui immediately felt refreshed and hurriedly spilled everything he knew frankly. Han Zhao, Illumira family. After hearing the information, Han Zhao stiffened. He did not know that his original self came from the Illumira family. You didn't lie to me, right? Zhao Rui shook his head repeatedly. Black Phantom appeared to be interested in Zero. He did not care about the reason. All he knew was he now had a chance of survival. So, this means I have a stepfather and a bunch of brothers and sisters. Han Zhao's feelings were complicated. He had always thought that he had not a worry or a concern in this world. He did not expect to have these connections. Illumira was his family. Han Zhao took one look at Zhao Rui. This person is my family, too. Illumira family, the North Continent's biggest warlord. Han Zhao pondered in silence. Zhao Rui's heart was nearly at his throat. He felt like he was a convict waiting for his sentence. This was the longest 1 minute of his life. You can leave, Han Zhao faintly said. Zhao Rui did not dare to believe it. He stood up, trembling, and ran 2 steps away in the opposite direction. He turned his head and saw an aloof Han Zhao. Only then was he ecstatic. His life was saved. He did not carry any thoughts of revenge. He did not want to have any further interactions with Black Phantom at all. He stretched his legs and ran for his life. Suddenly, there was a sharp pain at the back of his head. Zhao Rui lost his control of his body. What happened to me? So cold. This was Zhao Rui's last thought in this world. Illumira was the connections that Han Zhao's original self had, but that unfortunate man had already died. Han Zhao was Han Zhao, not another person. Even if the old Han Zhao had remaining blood relations, Han Zhao would not treat the Illumira family as his family. He lit the corpse on fire, turned around, and left. The blazing flame pulled his silent shadow longer and longer. Day was about to break, and the gunfire in Green Valleyville was finally coming to an end. The remaining enemies had all been killed. When Liu Cheng had conquered Green Valleyville, he ordered his troops to clear the battlefield and restrain them from harming any residents. The worried residents who could not sleep for the entire night rushed to the streets and listened to the new master of the town, Liu Cheng, in the square. He promised to safeguard the residents' lives and property. The battle last night had been very intense, and many players wished it had been longer. Han Zhao also gained some experience from the task. He held his arm and leaned against a house to wait for Liu Cheng to complete his speech. He had Frenzied Sword and Bun Hit Dog by his side. Bun Hit Dog went over to Frenzied Sword and said, I know you. You were featured on Galaxy Times. You are a professional gamer. Oh, Frenzied Sword reacted coldly. Have you always been following Black Phantom? Do you know his origins? His real name is Han Zhao, Frenzied Sword replied. He came to realization immediately and turned around to see if Han Zhao had hurt him. He relaxed. He used to serve Star Dragon. I'm not very sure about the exact details, but I do know that he is acquainted with someone in the camp called Star Dragon's Strategic Defense Department. Bun Hit Dog's eyes lit up. The video he wanted to make would be an investigation about Black Phantom's origin. Frenzied Sword had been his longest follower. He was likely to know things that others did not. Listening to the two discussing behind him, Han Zhao did not stop them. Frenzied Sword had limited knowledge about him. Such information could be disclosed and made known, and this would only make more players curious. After assuring the residents of Green Valley Ville, Liu Cheng handed over the affairs to the deputy and went to Han Zio's side. Black Phantom, thank you for your aid. If not for you, I would not have conquered Green Valley Ville. If only bosses didn't escape. Oh, I killed him. Liu Cheng's face went blank, and he felt a tight squeeze on his heart. I am very grateful, but do you really not want anything? Han Zio chuckled a little and changed the topic. Have you discovered the unique aspects of the refugees? Upon mentioning this, Liu Cheng was delighted. This group of refugees can all die and then resurrect. It's simply amazing. I thought they were simple ordinary people. This world is so big, and it seems like nothing is impossible. Didn't you destroy Green Valley Ville? You need these people to rebuild the place. These refugees are the best laborers you can find. You can use them to your liking. But some refugees were against me before. They are my enemies. Their assistance to bosses was not a loyal and faithful one. You can treat them as mercenaries. When he said this, Liu Cheng understood it. I can try. He invited Han Zio to his territory, the Black Pine Base, for a tour. Han Zio said that there was no need to pay him back. But Liu Cheng did not dare take his word for it and insisted on offering his services. Han Zio did not resist further. His intention was to get to know Liu Cheng better anyway. With your military strength, you could have attacked immediately when you came to the town, and the refugees could not have stopped you. Why did you give bosses time to prepare? Liu Cheng shook his head. He had not known that players could revive at that time. He said, only people without faith would think that violence is the solution to every problem. Your soldiers' lives are lives too though. Han Zio smiled. The strong ought to protect the weak. Liu Cheng paused and said, I won't kill unarmed refugees. No warlord want to see the tragedy of La Potter repeat itself. Tragedy of La Potter. What happened? Bun Hit Dog questioned, still recording. Liu Cheng thought Frenzied Sword and Bun Hit Dog were Han Zio's followers, so out of respect, he explained, La Potter was once a huge vagrant settlement in the West Continent. It was invaded by a vagrant warlord and his troops. Even though the military troops were supported by the locals, the enemies were too strong, and they were defeated. The warlord was upset that the vagrants dared fight against him, so he initiated a massacre of the helpless and unarmed civilians, raiding all their supplies and burning everything, killing countless innocent souls. Bun Hit Dog was unimpressed. Massacres like this had occurred numerous times in history. He probed, so what happened then? Then, the warlord and all of the few hundreds of his professional soldiers died in one night 20 days after that, killed single-handedly by one superhuman. After that, no warlord had the guts to kill any innocent civilians. Bun Hit Dog was puzzled. Why though? Han Zio answered, unfazed, because some people see themselves as heroes. If it was the normal world, no one could fight against the cruel authorities. Nothing could be done. However, with superhuman powers, even in lawless lands, those with powers could technically become those in charge of upholding laws. Superhumans could easily kill those that they did not see fit, so what they chose to uphold became the standard law for everyone else on the planet. So, what would they choose to uphold? It would be the issues that most people would agree on based on their moral compass, unless one could carry out genocide or murder on a massive scale without letting any news out. There was bound to be a superhuman to punish the instigator for his evil deeds. This could be seen as moral coercion. The weak had to follow the moral standards of the strong. Even though this in itself was questionable, it gave rise to a rough form of rules for the wild and indirectly protected the lives of vagrants. Bun Hit Dog recorded all this. He loved this type of stuff that could spice up his content. The car fleet drove on for a few hours, and the silhouette of the Black Pine settlement appeared on the horizon. It was huge, almost like a small city. The scenery was very exotic. Liu Cheng smiled and proudly said, welcome to Black Pine. It's enormous. Bun Hit Dog gasped. This can't be the place where newbies first enter. That's my weapon factory over there. I have a specialized assembly line to make guns and ammunition. Liu Cheng pointed to a restricted region that was barricaded with a barbed wire fence. Behind it were his warehouse, workshop, and weaponry experimental laboratory, and smoke could be seen escaping from the chimneys. On the other side, there was a second quarantined area. Inside, there were many tents and about a few hundred vagrants living inside them. Their exposed skin was covered in gray ash, cracked like rocks. What is that place? Bun Hit Dog asked curiously. Sighing, Liu Cheng answered, the terminal quarantine area. Any resident with grouper plague has to stay there to prevent infections. Grouper plague. Han Zio almost cried out in surprise. This type of illness was very infectious. In the version 2.0, it had spread and had caused some genetic mutations as well. He did not expect to find it here. Just as he was about to say something, a sudden commotion could be heard from the terminal quarantine area. Sprinting in a frenzied manner, an infected resident rushed toward the barbed wire fence. With all of his limbs, he tried to climb the fence to escape. However, the next second, a gunshot was heard. The security officer at the side reacted at lightning speed, firing at the man with his machine gun, turning this escaped resident into mesh as he fell to the ground. As he lay in his pool of blood, a viscous, yellow liquid could be seen pooling out from the corpse as well. Several doctors in their white protective suits walked out and packed the corpse into a body bag. On the ground where the corpse was, they sprayed large jets of disinfectant. The soldier who killed the escaping resident withdrew his gun, expressionless, as if he had just killed a worthless chicken. The infected within the quarantine area watched this scene in silence, expressionless and numb. A thick atmosphere of despair hung in the air like a dark, heavy cloud. Nearby, the residents looked as though everything was as usual, without a single trace of empathy on their faces. "That's cold-blooded," Bun-Hit Dog quietly said. At first, there were only tens of people who were infected. One infected knew that he couldn't be treated and escaped from the quarantine region, so the number of people infected increased to more than 300, Liu Cheng said dryly. Bun-Hit Dog was speechless. "You have triggered the quest." Quest description: Black Pine Settlement is troubled by the spread of the grouper plague. To control this plague, what do you think you can do? Quest requirements: 1. Find the source of the grouper plague. 2. Control the plague from spreading. 3. Treat all of the infected. Rewards: completed requirement 1, 20,000 EXP. Completed requirement 2, 40,000 EXP. Completed requirement 3, 60,000 EXP. All requirements completed. 800 Black Pine Reputation Points. Vagrant Warrior Battle Suit. Frenzied Sword and Bun-Hit Dog both received the quest as well. However, Han Zio did not intend to complete this quest. He was still in a rush to find more fools. No, to bring even more new players into the mechanic class, he needed to go to about 10 or so novice villages, and a large wave of experience was waiting for him. Time was tight, and he had many things to do. "My men have prepared a feast." Liu Cheng sent out the invitation, and the few of them arrived at Black Pine's central building. It was like a mini castle, and the western point was called the Lord's Hall. The dishes served in the feast were generous in quantity, meant to fill one's stomach. Black Pine Settlement had a harvest field where they grew their own crops, and they also had their own butchery, where they raised animals, such as Highland cattle, chicken, and the black-haired short-snout hog. At the feast, Han Zio and Liu Cheng were chatting casually when Liu Cheng eventually diverted the topic to the issue of repaying the favor to the Black Phantom. Dragging it on for so long, he felt very uneasy. "Just take it as we've become friends. In the future, if anything crops up, feel free to look for me, and I'll help you out." Thinking for a while, he said, "Come to think of it, I need some help from you. I want to borrow your workshop and some materials to make something." "No problem, I'll make arrangements right away." Liu Cheng felt more at ease. He felt reassured after Han Zio finally brought up a request for him. "Your territory has to deal with the issue of the grouper plague quickly, otherwise it might become a disaster. My friends will stay behind to help you out." Han Zio suddenly slapped Frenzied Sword's back, who spat out all of the food in his mouth, coughing non-stop. "Are you abandoning me?" Frenzied Sword asked disbelievingly. "I'm not interested in being your mom." Han Zio held back his biting comments as he wrote up a few quests and tossed them out for Frenzied Sword and Bun-Hit Dog to complete. The gist of the quests was to have the two of them remain at Black Pine, resolve the issue of the plague, and improve their reputation in Black Pine. Frenzied Sword could only agree to Han Zio's arrangements, and he was actually quite satisfied. Black Pine was a high-level map, and the rewards for each quest were quite generous too. Bun-Hit Dog had even less objections. The materials he had looted were already enough. Staying in Black Pine meant that he did not have to worry about losing track of Han Zio. He could focus on making the first episode of his video. He headed toward the weapon factory area. The guards there received Liu Cheng's orders. Accordingly, they opened up the workshop for Han Zio to use. Liu Cheng had already arranged for his men to prepare the materials. Han Zio began his work on the lathe. He needed to make some repairs to the magnetically controlled retractable armor and add on a load of ammunition and some basic storage cubes, then create some small parts to be built onto the Sunworm flamethrower he had developed recently. With its intelligence stat at 200, the machine's production speed was very fast, and there were other enhancing skills such as machinery affinity and energy stats strengthened, which would create even better stats on the device to be created. Side effect: adhesive burning, extends target's burn state and increases effectiveness of burns. Remarks: dancing flames, that is a warmth that is akin to romance. Hanzio raised his eyebrows. What kind of messed up remark is that? Sunworm's nozzle, duct, and fuel tank were integrated as one. It looked like a heat-insulating metal tube, about an arm's width. It could be tied to the arm or calf. At that time, an Asian man whose head was full of white hair walked toward him. He stared at Hanzio's high-ghost sniper rifle and curiously muttered, "That's right. It is an electromagnetic weapon." He then turned and asked Hanzio, "Can you sell this to me? I'm willing to pay 500, no, 1 million. Hanzio observed him for a second and already had some gut feels. Yet, he pretended to be confused and asked, "Who are you?" "I am Lei Zhenyu. Lu Cheng invited me over as his machinery engineering consultant." "You look like a mechanic too. You should have heard of my name." Hanzio remained silent. "Don't tell me you have not heard of my name. Or are you a self-taught mechanic? So unusual." Lei Zhen was surprised. He shook his head and said, "I want this electromagnetic sniper. How about you quote a price?" "Do I look like I'm in need of cash?" Hanzio pointed at that priceless components that were lying on the truck's seat. Lei Zhenyu then understood. "You are a self-taught mechanic. I can teach you some skills in exchange for this sniper of yours. You definitely need a master like me to guide you. Only through listening to the wise words of your seniors can you succeed. I can tell that deep down inside, you have always wanted to have a master to learn from. Here, the doors are open for you. This is your chance. If you miss it, you will regret for life." Hanzio's eyes twitched. It was the first time he had ever met someone who was so shameless and full of himself. With just a bit more, both of their skills would have been on par. Actually, Hanzio knew of Lei Zhenyu's background. He was a well-known and skillful master mechanic in aquamarine. So, he was not wrong about saying that he was a master. He belonged to the same era as Old Man Lu and had already retired decades ago. "I want advanced knowledge." Based on past memories, Lei Zhenyu knew some advanced knowledge. Yet, players were unable to acquire the knowledge from him. Even so, Hanzio decided he wanted to give it a try. Lei Zhenyu earnestly said, "Kid, don't be too ambitious. You are a self-taught mechanic. Your standard is not enough for you to be able to understand advanced knowledge. How about I teach you something else instead?" "No, I only want advanced knowledges. But you won't understand." "That's even better. You don't have to worry that I will learn it. I'll just look at it for an hour. Take it as I am just being curious, okay?" Lei Zhenyu was speechless. Advanced knowledge was very precious, and it could be considered a secret wild card. It was crucial that the knowledge was highly conserved. He thought Hanzio looked like a newbie, and given that he was a self-taught mechanic, he expected the gun to be made by someone else. Unfortunately, it turned out to be the opposite. All the 6 nations were secretly trying to invent an electromagnetic weapon, and none had even reached the experimental stage. If it was just creating a stable electromagnetic weapon, Hanzio and Lei Zhenyu were of the same standard. Lei Zhenyu then remembered that he had portrayed himself as a great master just now. Even with his old face, he felt ashamed and awkward. How shameful to flaunt his skills in front of another mechanic of the same level. Luckily, Lei Zhenyu had thick skin. He corrected his attitude and treated Hanzio as an equal. At that time, the guards rushed over and whispered to Lei Zhenyu that Hanzio was also a legendary assassin. Lei Zhenyu was dumbfounded. He then observed Hanzio for a while. Many mechanics were capable of experimenting. However, it was rare to find one who was also capable of fighting. His admiration for Hanzio rose to an even higher level. With good skills, one would be valued everywhere one went. "Please come with me, I will show you my storeroom." Lei Zhenyu coughed as he tried to change the conversation topic to avoid awkwardness. Both arrived at the restricted area inside of the arsenal area. This was where the high-ranking researchers lived. Lei Zhenyu's home was a spacious suite with all sorts of daily necessities. There were even wine cabinets and bookshelves that were made of high-quality wood, all of which was not cheap. By the corner of the room, there was a small, simple bed. He seemed to be leading a great life. Lei Zhenyu drew the wine cabinet open and activated the secret door button. The wine cabinet slid to a side and revealed a secret storeroom. He then called Hanzio over. Inside, there was a row of glass showcase shelves that stood by the wall and contained various weapons. Lei Zhenyu headed straight for the innermost showcase shelf. "I have 4 items that were created using the advanced knowledges. Let me introduce them to you." Type I Nurse Bio Granule. It looked like a thick black substance, but in actual fact, it was able to divide into special nanogranules. They could then be inserted into one's body. When injured, poisoned, or bleeding, they would help one recover from the situation either by clearing the poison or speeding up blood clotting. U9 Colloidal Bulletproof Membrane. It looked just like ordinary glass on the surface. However, upon receiving any shock, it would briefly become non-solid to counteract kinetic energy and then solidify to trap any object. For instance, when a bullet is shot toward it, the bullet would be trapped, as though it was originally growing from within. Though it looked just like transparent glass, it was highly defensive and not easily damaged. Fermi condensate. It was a weapon that resembled the appearance of shaving foam and could be injected into a weapon to cool it down internally. It would reduce the cooldown time and then quickly degrade so as to prevent jamming up the weapon system. PE0 nanosynthetic fiber. Similar to the biological tendons of a living organism, it was a black, shiny, tough nanomaterial. Twisting or stretching it would result in an unbelievable elasticity. Hanzio could only exchange the sniper for one of those items. After pondering for a while, Hanzio made his choice. I want the PE0 nanosynthetic fiber. Wow, that's smart. I thought a warrior like you, who likes to battle, would go for the bulletproof membrane instead. To create something, I will need sufficient PE0. Alright, Lei Zhenyu nodded. He felt that out of the 4 weapons, PE0 nanosynthetic fiber was the most valuable one, as this new material could be used for many more weapons. He realized that Hanzio was indeed a skillful mechanic with keen eyes. As they confirmed the exchange, Hanzio returned to his truck and began creating a new ghost sniper rifle. With the help of the blueprint, everything went well. I still need one thing, but there is no channel for me to buy it. I hope you can help me buy a bonfire mini reaction furnace. Hanzio packed his box and spoke once more. This item that he needed was a module related to lightweight mecha. Lei Zhenyu was a mechanic master. Hence, he knew many people from the same trade and had many connections. That item is not easy to get. Besides, even if I ask my friend from Ordina to sell it to me at cost price, it would still cost 2 to 3 million. Not to mention, extra time will be needed to make that item. Money isn't the problem. Hanzio smirked and was full of confidence. After a night of rest in his room, Hanzio called for Frenzied Sword and Bun-Hit Dog the next morning. I will be away for some time. You guys can stay at Black Pine, and I will contact you later on. Bun-Hit Dog was reactionless while Frenzied Sword showed his unwillingness. Hanzio took out 2 newly built large-caliber pistols that were suitable for shooting within 80 meters. It was specially designed to strengthen the magazines and the attack damage. It was green quality and twice as powerful compared to the pistols that Hanzio had sold to the other players. Is this for me? Frenzied Sword asked in disbelief. Hanzio smiled and nodded. Frenzied Sword was overjoyed and could not help but start playing with his 2 pistols. Bun-Hit Dog, who was standing by one side, was also shocked. Is this a benefit of the secret quest? As long as your performance is good, Black Phantom will reward you as and when he likes. When giving rewards, Bun-Hit Dog could also film it, and when it is aired, more players would witness the scene. Through that, many people would think that Hanzio cared a lot about rewards and would be more eager to join his secret quest. All Hanzio had to do was gift pistols that he could make easily, and with a little bit of generosity, he would be able to earn even more. After making his instructions clear, Hanzio boarded the Darknet helicopter and left Black Pine. When the helicopter arrived at the Fabian Company, Hanzio boarded on the transport aircraft and headed for a new novice village in the southern continent. Once he boarded the aircraft, Hanzio began building his mecha. The advantage of building his own mecha was that the different modules could be fixed separately and then combined together afterwards. This would reduce the risk, and the success rate for a self-created mecha would be higher. Even though he did not have the blueprints, he had his own ideas. The different functions of the self-created mecha could be achieved just by mimicking the other mechas from his memories. The southern continent had 5 novice villages. Besides Bighorn Village and Green Valleyville, Hanzio spent 11 days visiting the other 3. Most of his time was spent on traveling. When he arrived at each novice village, he need not do anything. Players would quickly crowd around him. Those who wanted to advance would advance, and those who had their own things to do would engage in their own things. It was super effective. His popularity was all thanks to Galaxy Times and the advertising through the forum. Hanzio was making a small profit from each novice player, and these small gains accumulated to a veritable fortune. When his level reached LV55, he would need to advance in order to continue leveling up. In version 1, the level limit was LV60, so he was 5 levels away. However, he was not restricted by the limit in this version. Hanzio could in fact become the first character in Aquamarine to reach LV60. Unfortunately, the advancement requirements were a real headache for him. Advancement mission: create 5 quality machinery with an energy rating no lower than 60. Damn, am I so unlucky. Out of so many advancing conditions, How unlucky am I to get the most troublesome one? Han Zio was stunned. Admirable quality meant a grade higher than blue. Since he started building his machinery was about 15% to 20% blue, and only 1% to 2% of his machinery might have reached purple. High-level mechanics could easily create high-quality, simple machines. The requirement of energy rating no lower than 60 for advancement limited the possibility of him using low-level machinery as a shortcut. The frown between Han Zio's brows deepened like a great ravine. Advancement was difficult. Moreover, he would need to use his experience points to level up his skills and fuse blueprints together. This could be a bottomless pit, especially for fusing the blueprints. Han Zio had completed his visits to all the novice villages in the southern continent. Next, Han Zio decided to visit the western continent. The nations in the western continent were Maple and Ordina. You are going to the western continent. A person like you, an assassin, will definitely be blacklisted by many nations. The special agents of Maple and Ordina might find you for afternoon tea. You will have no say over there too. Our power in the western continent is limited as well. A piece of advice for you, try not to expose yourself. Don't worry, I won't go crazy there. Filled with fuel, the aircraft took flight and disappeared into the air. The Black Phantom had gone to the western continent. Why is he there? Bennett was shocked. I don't know. He didn't say. Wang Yuan shook his head. Bennett had no choice but to give Han Zio a call. He did not answer. As Han Zio was flying across the ocean, the reception on his phone was bad. Helpless, Bennett shook his head. Stardragon's material aid had arrived, and Hesla had loosened a little after some work. The shelter plan was about to be rolled out as a pilot project in the southern continent. He was planning to gather the strongest members of various organizations as the first layer of protection for the plan. Black Phantom was third on the list of people he was going to invite. However, before he could even invite him, Han Zio had already left for the western continent. The enclosed room did not seem to have a single light source and was separated from the outside world by a thick metal door. Through the darkness, there was only a streak of light peeking through a small opening. Electrolux was sitting in a corner, reading his interface in exasperation. His Esper potential rating was great, however. After over 20 days of open beta, when most players had reached LV8, he was still at LV1. The Germinal organization said they would lock him up for a month, and they meant it. I want to perform a little test with you. A man in white smiled freakishly. Cyberloss was joyous. He was one of the top executives in the Germinal organization. As a biologist, he had worked on various experiments for Germinal for many years. Before joining them, Cyberloss was a high-level researcher who betrayed Raylan. He was insane, and his mind was always full of crazy ideas. Even as a fellow human, it was impossible to stop his strong urge to dissect other human bodies. He also did not care about principles and would join anyone who was willing to aid him with resources. In the end, he joined the Germinal organization. As such, Germinal supported Cyberloss to experiment on his crazy ideas by sponsoring him with materials. He was responsible for Valkyrie, Super Soldier, and Genetic Improvement, all those projects that were totally unethical. There were even other more sinister experiments, and just by mentioning the names, it would make a normal person disgusted and the insane excited. For instance, cross-species hybrid breeding, human-animal fusion. Cyberloss reread and scrutinized the diary. Day 1. The subject was sent into the restricted room, monitored around the clock, including using night vision camera monitoring. Fed 3 times a day at 7 a.m., 11 a.m., and 7 p.m. with no relaxation time given. Subject seemed anxious but has yet to show any after effects from the brainwashing session. Initial observation shows that subject has immunity. Recommended to perform compliance test on the subject. Day 2, 8 a.m., went through the compliance test. Results shown that subject is highly obedient. Passed all the tests, and the polygraph does not exhibit any abnormalities. Subject has accepted the new identity from the brainwashing. 11 p.m., abnormality started showing. Subject has vanished, and no signs of damage were observed in the restricted room. A search was conducted, subject not found. Day 4, subject reappeared in the restricted room, the same location where he disappeared, with no warning. Footage data. We controlled the subject immediately and interrogated about the reason behind his disappearance and what he encountered after he disappeared. Subject had seemed confused, and the interrogation was recorded in. Increased the monitoring on the subject. Day 6, used hypnotism to check if he was lying, and the subject spoke gibberish. Footage. At night, subject vanished again. Day 8, subject reappeared. Interrogated and hypnotized. Details. At 8 p.m., surgery was performed to observe the biology, and his physiology seemed normal. Surgery conclusion. immortal, able to resurrect, appear out of nowhere, unknown origin. If it was just one person, there was no reason to worry. However, thousands of people had shown the same symptoms, and this number was still increasing, as though it was spreading like an infectious disease. The leader was concerned and made Cyberloss in charge of conducting various experiments on Electrolux. Electrolux was pinned down in the middle by the guards and was brought to the surgery theater. Lying down on the surgery table, he was given the surgery task. The German organization had brainwashed him. As such, he thought all orders given were compulsory missions and violation would lead to heavy punishments. Electrolux was given anesthesia and was unable to move. All he could do was watch the knife moving about on his body. As he realized he was being dissected, his body system started reacting when the operation started. "You died." Electrolux was struck dumb, and he was revived in the room after 10 seconds. "What in the world? Was I dissected and experimented on?" Electrolux froze. He had lost 1 revive for that week. However, his EXP did not decrease, and that might have been due to him dying under special circumstances. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Cyberloss witnessed the whole procedure where Electrolux vanished and then reappeared again. It happened in a split second, and the blood stains could still be seen on the operation theater. "You? No, what kind of creature are you?" Cyberloss' eyes lit up. Electrolux suddenly felt like pulling a prank. "What will happen if I tell the truth? The world you live in is just a game. I am just a player." To his shock, Electrolux realized that anything he tried to say became gibberish. Cyberloss shook his head. "It is the same as the hypnosis record, all nonsense." Electrolux was shocked to find out that NPC could tell the uniqueness of a player. This must have been coded by the developer in an attempt to simulate more realistic characters. Cyberloss turned on his computer and brought up a highly confidential file. He verified using his fingerprint, his iris, and a password, which was changed on a daily basis, before opening a document, the Universal Treaty. Aquamarine came into contact with the Kadola's civilization and had attained more knowledge. The German organization had a copy of this treaty as well. It was stated on the treaty that a projection from a high-level civilization would occasionally interfere with a low-level civilization. The special characteristics of not dying was similar to the description of the projection technique on the treaty. If this was true, this would be the invasion of an advanced civilization. No, for the entity to invade, it would not be so troublesome. A logical explanation would be Aquamarine had become a testing ground for a certain civilization. Cyberloss was not angry at all. In fact, he was very excited by the unexpected phenomenon. Andrea Mainland was the territory of the Germinal organization, and the leader ordered people to bring back research specimens to brainwash. There were also aliens appearing in the other 3 continents. It was a pity that the sub-bases had been uprooted, and no one was around to capture them. The leader only realized now that they had lost an opportunity all because of Zero. He was so angry that his teeth ached, and he even wanted to make use of the Son of Destiny to lock onto the position of Zero. But he had not yet made the decision to take the risk. The bonfire mini-reaction furnace was another equipment for advancement. The cellar seems to be in the western continent, so Han Zio had chosen to come here. A mecha was a quick way to improve combat power, and as long as he could create the Python lightweight mecha, his combat power could increase by a huge jump. "I'll go to the novice village and collect some experience first." At that instant, his cell phone buzzed. He opened it and turned out to be a message from the Blood Pact Society. "Black Phantom, this is a reward from the Dark Net. Your mission is to sneak into the residence of a few Maple officials and leave certain documents there. Someone will meet you at the Western Continent and give you the documents you will need, including the specific information of the location and some Maple officials." Han Zio raised an eyebrow and called Bennett. "Hey, what are you up to?" It was beneficial to know someone on the top, as one phone call across could get him information. Maple does not want to provide assistance, and it is because these few officials are getting in the way. "You know the situation over in Maple, we would be touching the treasury of these officials, so they are fiercely opposing us." "What assistance?" Han Zio raised an eyebrow as he had an inclination. "I have yet to mention to you, but the organization is planning a large-scale project, Shelter. There was originally a year to plan, but as the war is about to start, we can only push forward with the plan and request aid from all the countries. Only Maple has rejected." Han Zio's eyes lit up. The Shelter plan had started early. With his relationship to the Dark Net, he was confident in the plan and asked an obvious question. "What is the Shelter plan? Do you need my help?" Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.